Blood Trail. I have some revenge to do with Blood Trail. He beat me in the championships in the top 8 and denied me my direct Worlds invitation. And so he's currently 1-0 against me. I'm definitely looking for revenge. I think he's actually my first match of Grandmasters. And I'm looking for revenge, but yeah, very solid player and I have to beat him. So in my division, the 2 players that I think are really good and I see as very hard opponents are Shaxi, and the other person is Blood Trail. I think I dodged from the other division. I think I dodged Tom, I think I dodged Surrender, I think I dodged Rubius. But in my division, it's Shaxi and Blood Trail. So my most memorable moment was when I was playing Hearthstone Global Games with the Netherlands alongside of Thais, Theo, and Mitsuhide. And we were playing against Team Brazil in the top 16 match. And it was looking really bad for us. We were 2-1 behind, and I had to hit a 1-in-6 Ragnarok shot to the face in order to end the game. And I just kind of gave up already. I was like, no way, this is gonna happen. So I just clicked the button and boom, it went into the face. And that was probably the first time where I won a very important Hearthstone match because I was very lucky. And yeah, that was a great feeling.
My name is Patrick Cadness, and my handle on Twitter is Patrick Cadness, and my Battle.net tag is Pathra. The person that stands out the most to me is Tyler, while I was lining up outside of Worlds. And I think I'd love to beat him. It's like a streamer versus streamer battle. An average day for me would be waking up, walking my dog, eating while watching someone stream, and then starting up my stream, and then after that, walking my dog again, eating again, and then sleeping. I do think that, yeah, I'm one of the weakest players in this tournament. Like, I would say I'm an underdog. And also, just like being on HGG, I remember seeing people predict that New Zealand would be at the very bottom, but we managed to get top 8 basically both years in a row. And so I do feel there's a lot of pressure for me. I feel like New Zealand is just wanting me to do well, and all the women that are watching me who play Hearthstone are just watching me, and I want to do well for them too. So I remember that pressure hitting me yesterday, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's actually hitting me now. But yeah, I feel okay about it now, and I think I can do it. And I'll do my best, of course.
As you can see, we've got Pathra versus Tyler coming right up for match number 3 and the feature match of the day. And it's going to be Tyler on Warrior versus Pathra on Mage. And again, just a bit of a review on what happened in the previous days for this. Both players lost. Actually, Pathra was on the receiving end of Blitzchunk's Rampage this weekend, and Tyler also took a loss as well, and he took a loss versus Dawn, a bit of a closer match, but it was a pretty spicy one as well, so make sure to check the VODs out to catch up on those matches. But yeah, let's take a look at the deck list and see what's going to happen here, as is often the case. For me, at least, the primary decks are the most important because that's where you can really gain or lose an advantage. And this one's a little bit spicy in itself, Language Hack.
Yeah, a lot of cards we've seen in Old Wallet Warrior are making an appearance again, at least in Tyler's primary list. We have cards such as Karen Bloodhoof, Grommash Hellstream, and Alex Straza. Some of the classic legendaries we have in here. The rest of the deck looks similar to what most other Bomb Warriors are running. He's cut some of the other cards. There is only one Weapons Project, one Elec, one Shield Block, but Tyler's definitely going for more of an aggressive tempo game plan, kind of coming out of the 3-4 curve, and he still wants stuff to do. He wants to play Karen, hopefully a Boom on 7, follow up with Grom. Like you can get a really aggressive curve with the way Tyler's built this list.
Yeah, and I think it's extremely well thought out if you're prepared against Mage, because one of the things, Tyler, it has, an anti-Mage deck, but for me, this feels anti-Mage. I'm going to be completely honest, because although there's only a 1 of Omega Devastator, the amount of times we talk about curving out and being aggressive, well, the curve ends at like 5.
Yep.
Normally, right? And then as you mentioned, well, now there's Cairn, there's the Booms, of course, but then there's Grom, there's Alex Straza if you've not been able to put much damage in early on or you've been frozen out of the game. I do really like the way Tyler's built this deck, a little bit different. My only criticism, a bit heavy on the dust. It's not the cheapest deck in the world to build, as you can see in the top right there. 15,720. One thing we will get, I think, would be pretty cool is to highlight some of the cheapest dust cost decks we've seen Grandmasters. Just, a few players who want to try out some of these decks. They are, bit of a warning, they are prepared for specifically this league and for specifically their opponents every week. Might not be the best decks overall on ladder, but still, if they're cheap enough, it's worth trying them out. Let's take a look at Patra's deck as well. And Pathra is going to be on the mage this week. We did see a play, as I mentioned, versus Blitzchung previously, and she took just a 0-2 defeat very, very quickly. And Blitzchung, again, just, I do keep talking about him, but I think he's really good. His deck just destroyed mage all weekend, but now Patra's got a bit of a better matchup, a bit of a more controllable matchup. But what do you make of a deck for this one?
We'll see how this fares against Warrior. Pathra has some techs in her main list against Mage. So we can see there's Snap Freeze. Not a very common pick in Cyclone Mage, but it is a nod to the mirror where you can Rare Frost and Snap Freeze together to be able to kill a Giant, maybe a Luna, Antonidas, like some other stuff. She does have a copy of Archmage Antonidas in her main list as well. We see a Sandbinder for a bit of consistency, just one Buffoon, and also a Frostbolt in there as well. No Rabble Bouncers or Vex Crows, though. Yeah,
that's definitely a positive, at least for this matchup. Right. And one thing I just want to point out as well is how players deal with their reads and what that means for their primary deck. So as you can see, it's not the best anti-warrior deck, right? Because of the Snap Freeze. Sure. It's not fantastic. But Pathra also ended up facing mid-range Hunter with the Beasts and and Bomb Warrior. Apologies. Yep. And I feel like a primary deck just missed on both of those, right? I feel like it was very much built to play the mirror, and it is likely that you do play the mirror if you're expecting a lot of mage, but Pathra just missed, basically, and I think this is going to prove this weekend to be maybe one of the hardest ones.
Definitely agree, yeah. These decks are not very, at least the primary list is not primed for the decks she's coming up against. Snap Freeze can still be used against some of the Warriors, heavier cards, and we do see that Tyler does have stuff like Karen and Grom, so they might end up being useful in this game, but in the average game, it might be difficult to use.
Right, and of course, don't get me wrong, the cards aren't trash. I'm not being like, these cards are pointless, but Snap Freeze against Hunter, if they build a big hyena, you can freeze it out. So, there are uses for the cards, but they may not be the cards you would specifically put in for the matchups, which is why when we look at secondary and tertiary decks, you can see that they're probably decks that they're going to switch to in terms of what they want to be the actual warrior and mage, either way matchup with as well. So I am going to lean towards, as I feel like I am doing this week, lean towards Bomb Warrior in the mage matchup overall, but I feel it's because mages have been, the mage players have been very focused on how to beat the mirror and how to not die to the counters, which is aggro, which I think has created a gap for Bomb Warrior to be even better than it was. And people were arguing last week about Bomb Warrior just being good versus mage, but now this week the focus isn't there. I think at least for game one, Bomb Warriors have been favored.
Yeah, agreed. I think with the primary lists, Tyler might have a bit of an edge, maybe a bit more of an edge. We'll see. Pathra throws away the 3 cards she had. Tyler considering if he wants to keep any of these. He's running 2 Acolytes, some extra card draw. It's not as powerful on turn 3 just as a sort of tempo play. It's not like a Clockwork Goblin or Augmented Elec, but he still is running those cards, so this helps his game plan become a bit more consistent. Draw a few more cards, try to hit that curve. He might be considering whether or not he wants to keep an Omega Assembly. I believe we saw him, if not yesterday, but earlier playing just Omega Assembly on one, for example, just to get something discovered to... Did he just full keep?
Let's find out.
No, okay.
No, okay, yeah. I was a bit
like... That was a little weird. Man, he opts to keep an Omega Assembly. Since he had both in his hand, he can't have thrown both back and got another one. Right. So I do like this. There's not a whole lot you can do on turn 1. He is running a Town Crier, but no Eternium Rovers. So,
Tyler's good at these Omega Assemblies, isn't he?
He's going to take his time and think about it, but I believe we'll be seeing a Clockwork Goblin here. I do like him keeping one Omega Assembly just to exactly spend the 1 man on 1. Yeah,
you're not doing anything else. Yes, you run Town Crier, but that's actually all Tyler's running. There are no Eternium Rovers in this list, so there's one drop in the deck. Why not keep another one?
I might even see him coin out a Clockwork Goblin here. Yeah, he has 2/3 drops. There's no 4 or 5 just yet, so.
But shield block on 4 isn't the end of the world now that he's drawn it, you know what I mean? It's really not the worst play. It's something to do that helps you get through your deck, and with double Acolyte, Tyler wants to get through the deck.
I like this. Be aggressive, especially if you're going into the Mages turn 3 where they might have Arcane Intellect or something like that.
With them on no coin as well, it means that their options are just less and less and less.
So with the draws from the Arcane Intellect, Pathra does have some interesting things she can go for. She does have the Apprentice, the Ray of Frosts, Plural, and the Cyclone. And a Magic Trick now. We might just see her go in this turn. She might hold back
if
a
you
bit
get
more.
Mountain Giant, exchange, right?
If I think it's guaranteed since you have the 2 Cyclones in hand.
Oh, you know what? I was looking at the middle one. I didn't even see the one on the left. I was like, you know, it's pretty favored to draw the Mountain Giant, but no, 100%. There's only 4 elementals in the deck. Oh,
this is what I'm talking about. There's the bomb.
Well.
The Giant might be too slow.
It might be now,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh my. And this is, you know what?
It's turn 4. She's at 16.
I think
Or turn
it
5 for
has
her.
to be Giant and Ray of Frost.
You don't even have Conjurer's Calling.
I don't know. I don't think random spells are good enough.
I think you want to freeze this whole board.
But then what do you do next?
The thing is, I think she should have gone in last turn, perhaps, with the Apprentice, just because she didn't have the Giant at that point. Yes, she had the Sandbinder, but she knew exactly what she was staring down on, like at the board. She saw there was a Clockwork Goblin and an Augmented Elec. So I would have kind of liked just going in last turn. I know it's not the biggest sort of pop off with the spells, but
I think you have to play Giant. Next turn you can go off. You can use Frost Nova as well, if you need it next turn. But if you freeze 1, you take in 4 damage.
actually, I think I agree with you.
It's not the end of the world. It's the least damage you're ever going to take for the rest of the game, probably. And you need to do something.
Another Rare Frost doesn't hurt. But I'm curious
now,
what else she's doing then.
Ooh.
I think this is much too slow from Pathra.
I'm afraid of just being dead soon.
There's no bombs left. Obviously, this is just 4 damage, but or 3 if this happens. But you don't have something on the board.
And it's more card draw for the
Tyler
Acolyte.
can develop something else now.
And also my thing as well is there was 0 armor because Tyler's been playing on curve, which means the Giant gets traded into.
It's very, very unlikely that dies. Tyler's not running Execute, and even with a Shield Slam, he's only running 1 Shield Block and 1 Weapons Project, so it's unlikely that it was active.
I guess the fear was trade, and then the Dynamatic. But are you going to play around Dynamatic forever?
You have to do something.
Oh.
So Giant's 3 mana now.
But everything else costs too much.
Yeah, and you can't go Giant with the Apprentice and the Cyclone. So Petra's decided if she wants to just go in with the Giant this turn. She can go Giant, Ray of Frost, Snap Freeze. And I think I would prefer that just with the 2 Acolytes left on board.
It could also just be Giant Nova.
You could, but
it's the most expensive spell. Is my you know, and then next turn you can go off with all 0 costs basically.
True.
0 to 1 next.
Oh, I really would have liked to see the Giant come down this turn. I think Petra's taking this a little too slowly. She's clearing up more of the board here, but I think having a Giant over pinging off the Acolyte is pretty big. I know she doesn't have the Conjurer's Calling, but Tyler also doesn't have like a great way to deal with this. On this turn, Dynamatic wouldn't have even been enough.
Right, exactly, because the Acolyte would have to trade, and then that just doesn't add up, right?
Turn 6, Karen. Karen on curve.
That's pretty sick, right? And you've just seen some hard removal as well. I forget the name of the card.
Snap Freeze.
Snap Freeze.
Tyler does have the option to go Dynamatic if he wants to draw 3 cards instead, but I think with Pathra at 12 health,
you want to kill your opponent. Yeah. Especially because you often guarantee even a 4, like just because even if the cans, it takes like so much to deal with the full can that it normally swings at least once, which then puts your opponent to 8, which is, say for example, 1 swing of the Wrench Caliber and a bomb away. I'm not saying that's exactly what you can plan around with the Patron 18 cards, but it's a nice number and it's an awkward enough card for Pathra to deal with. And now Frostbolt, nice pickup though, but like I said, it would have to be like...
Yeah, Pathra can go in now with the Giant and the Apprentice with the Cyclone to round it off. But
that means
the damage has been done.
But also it means
literally
that
and figuratively.
there's no Nova, so then the freezes have to last longer, which is fine because they're a Ray of Frosts. But I don't know. I think.
Oh, I want to see a Giant first.
Someday I'll be just like you.
Okay.
Double Cyclone,
is there something else?
Go.
So if the Apprentice sticks this turn, she does have the Archmage coming down next turn potentially. But
Are there
you
enough
can still-
fireballs in the world, though, that are going to win you this game, is my question.
if your board doesn't get cleared, technically yes. However, I don't know, this is just weird to me. It's possible she's going for a double Cyclone turn, but I don't think you needed to go double Cyclone. I think just having the Giant on board is more important than having the extra cards from the Cyclone. And double dipping with the Cyclone, you don't even have the hand size to actually support that. That Snap Freeze pickup is actually pretty decent here.
And there's another Ray of Frost to stall it out, which is huge, obviously. I would have liked the Giant about 8 turns ago or so, you know, like a long time ago. But the way we see Pathra play, I have to believe that there is a overall game plan here. She's working towards something, right? I'm not sure what that is, whether Antonidas is the plan, but I think that's just so unlikely that you actually stick an apprentice to get value from Antonidas, that I'm not sure how Patra's actually progressing in this game. She's not dying, but I don't know how she's winning.
I think
That's
she
the
might be
problem.
too scared of her Giant just being cleared and then not having anything else to do after that. But you have to do something.
Well, the longer the game goes on, the more likely it is to get cleared as well, right? That's the problem. Unless you're relying on drawing exactly Conjurer's Calling within 2 to 3 turns, the payoff isn't there, right? The longer the game goes on, the harder it gets.
Yeah, and even then, just taking all the chip damage that she took means that even if she does find the Conjurer's Calling and gets onto the board, all right, Tyler now slows down, doesn't hit her in the face as much, or maybe he still does if there aren't any taunts coming out from the Giant. But let's say he does have to trade and fight for the board. Okay, now these bombs are just going to finish you off for the remainder of the game. So I really would have liked to see Pathra play a bit more aggressively.
And even soon, there's just Blastmaster Boom, which the Boom bots, they don't normally add up to 12 to face, but anything to face and then just a sudden bomb draw and you're just dead. And the problem with the random bombs is that Pathra can't just be like, oh, I'm not going to draw cards in this deck anymore. It's like, well, you have to draw cards or you can't win. So the quicker the cards are drawn, the quicker is the odds that your chances you're going to die.
You can freeze both minions here and play Cyclone with a Giant.
Why not at this point? The Nova's much more overall powerful, and this actually gets you something to do next turn, maybe.
Which is defensive option, can be used. Blast Wave doesn't quite do enough here. If you trade off a Cyclone, and you can get some stuff from it, but Militia Commander's the pickup from Tyler. Doesn't quite kill off the Giant though.
Does Tyler continue to have a read that there's no Conjurers? Because that turn is not better than Giant Conjurers, right?
So Tyler should see that that Giant came not super far left, but pretty far left, and that's been in the hand for at least a few turns, so he can probably consider the fact that there isn't a Conjurer's Calling in hand.
Because there's been Conjurer's turns, which would have been better than the turns Patra's made, right?
Yeah.
You would assume.
Turn 6, the Giant would have been in hand with the Conjurers. He goes for Town of Crier, sees what the draw is, but I do just like Blastmaster. There's only one bomb in the deck, I believe. Yep. But you're at 31 from Tyler's perspective.
Tyler's just got to keep trying to threaten lethal every turn now.
Continue the pressure, which is kind of what Tyler's deck is built to do with the extra threats in there. With the Apprentice pickup, Patrick could go for like Ray of Frost images with Antonidas. I just don't think it does enough at this point.
Also, bear in mind as well, something to just remember, because Tyler's not playing the most standard of warrior lists, is he has Warpath in hand, so one Grom draw, that's just 10 from hand straight away. Patra's only on 12. You know? So even we're talking about, you know, the chance of drawing bombs or any extra damage Tyler can push. Sometimes Tyler just hits you for 10, and you know, that could just be lethal from nowhere. And actually, outside of just taunt minions, well, freezes don't stop Grom, which is why I actually quite like the card in this matchup, because it's pretty flexible in terms of just coming out from hand.
From Patra here, I want to see exactly Giant, Apprentice, Nova. You're in a terrible spot. You need to end the game. You push 10 damage. You develop some more onto the board. I don't think you're dealing with this. I think you need to Nova. I do want to see the Giant first, though. If you don't want to play the Apprentice, that's fine. Maybe you want to hold on to it for something, but you just need to go.
Wait, what did you want instead of the Giant? Sorry, with the Giant?
Giant, then Apprentice Nova.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant images. I was like, well, that just makes Brawl better. Come on.
No, well, I don't think you're playing Run Brawl at this point. You're in such a rut that you need to just end the game. Like, you need to say, all right, I'm not beating this card or this card. Like,
and the problem is, looking at this board, does Contra's Call even save you now? I don't think it does, right?
She's playing so passively, and I don't understand why.
Oh, here's a big turn though. This is why you should play Sorcerer's Apprentice.
True.
This opens up some cards that are able to. I mean, look at this. The magic trick was obviously sick as well.
Right.
But this
even
allows
with
you
the
to get
Ray
some
of Frost,
fireballs.
if that's a twin spell, maybe it's a bit better because it stops a lot of the damage coming through. The issue is that even, sure, you have all these fireballs, you don't have enough turns to use them.
Right.
Because sure, you have an extra freeze in hand after this turn. You have the Blizzard that was generated from the Mana Cyclone, but that's 6 mana, so you're launching 1 fireball, and then you have 2 more the turn after, which is 18.
Frost
plus a
Nova might be
ping.
the saving grace here, actually, right?
Yeah, the Frost Nova pickup definitely helps. Oh, that wasn't even a twin spell Ray of Frost.
No, it wasn't. It was single. Yeah.
Ouch.
Although I always, well, pushing to face in most worlds doesn't change the numbers, right? Initially, it adds up to a number that is divided by 6.
Well, the main thing is that killing the Town Crier doesn't stop anything from happening. The 2 bombs can still hit an image, the Clockwork Goblin can hit the other one. All it does is it save you 1 health if Tyler chose to send that face.
Does it change the health numbers to put you to 5? Would it have put Pathra to 5 if it lived? So 2.
No, it would have put her down to 7.
Right. Okay. So okay.
Just not quite. Okay. Turn 10 now. Tyler using the Omega Assembly number 2. See what's in the box. He's going for a Warpath here. Kills off the Cyclone and the 2 images, sending out the bombs. That
4.
is that. There is no.
Put.
It's 1 damage off of lethal. He uses the second Warpath in conjunction with the. Not Spider Bomb, sorry, Clockwork Goblin. And then, yeah, push for face damage. Coppertail comes down. Pathra does have some freezes, but there is, I believe, 1 bomb in the deck. It's just a matter of time until she. Okay, I spoke too soon.
Okay. The problem is that the Ziliax play delays the game,
Right.
which then just gives Tyler more turns to do damage. It's kind of like, yes, it saves you, but I feel like it just. The door holds for just that little bit longer, that's all.
So there's a lethal setup here for Pathra. If she goes Giant, Nova, Pink Face, Tyler goes down to 19. If your armor's up to 21, she has 8 on board plus 13 from hand, which would be 21. That's assuming Tyler has no extra card draw, no extra armor gain,
Yeah.
or any way to deal with the Giant.
I mean, you had me at set sub lethal, because I think that's what Pathra needs to do.
Yeah.
Even if there are ways Tyler just completely counters it, if there's a way to set up lethal this turn, I think you do it. I think you're forced into the corner right now.
I don't think Patra's winning the game by going Fireball Ziliax here. Fireball to clean up the Blastmaster Boom and Ziliax to kill off the Bane, sorry, and to heal up.
What to do?
Blizzard Fireball?
3 Fireballs is 18, plus a ping next turn will be 19, so this doesn't set up lethal. The way she's playing this is a bit like freeze magey. The problem is you don't have enough direct damage to get there, and that's assuming there's no extra armor gain from Tyler as well. This game has been very weird from Pathra.
Tyler's got options,
Yeah.
to be honest. I wouldn't mind him just playing the Boom Reaver.
So from Tyler's perspective, if Patra's taking this sort of line, he must think, what does she have in hand? What are those? A, what is that magic trick card? And B, what is that random card from the Cyclone?
Right.
Because he knows that there's 2 fireballs, so he's thinking, this is kind of scary. Maybe I should just armor up to get out of something that I'm not seeing.
Yeah, this is just safe anyway. Oh, and there's Boom.
I like this a lot.
That's rough. But just a note, Pathra does run Frostbolt, but she runs 1, and it was
she does run
and
it
it
up.
was
She used it though,
she's
right?
used it. So Tyler, if he's been keeping track, which he will be doing, he probably has Deck Tracker open as well, which is legal. But it means that the old 15 health, right? The old freeze mage, fireball, Frostbolt. But Tyler will be aware that the standard Frostbolt that is in Patra's list has been used already this game. But this is, I was on about fancy plays of just trying to push more damage on more threats. But this is the safest play, and obviously the Dr. Boom Mad Genius pickup is just, oh, hello, I'm nearly on full health again. Nice fireballs, friend. And now, does it have to be Fireball Ziliax to clear?
Could be Blast Wave Ziliax to hold on to the burst.
Blast Wave Ziliax.
It's not
Would you
super
ever
pretty, but
ping instead then?
over the Ziliax.
Just Blast Wave ping. Because you Ziliax trade,
You're at 4
which
health.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the thing. You have a bomb in deck, and there's going to be more bomb generation from Tyler eventually.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll see. Pathra went with the more sort of high-value play of saying, I don't know where my Ziliak's in for the fun of it.
Yep.
But it wasn't just for the fun of it. As you mentioned, it was to push out of bomb damage range. Here's Boom Reaver. And fine. It's
Harrison Jones.
not going to get much use in terms of Battle Cry. But now what? Like, again, I just feel like every single turn, I just want Giant Frost Nova. Every turn.
But
I
the
want
problem
play
is
something that kills stuff.
the later you go on, the worse it gets. I mean, at this point, it's not setting up lethal, right?
No, but you need to do something.
Yeah, you do
you
something.
need to play minions and hit them in the face to win the game of Hearthstone.
Still no Conjures calling that we've seen from Pathra, so it is unfortunate that those haven't been present to sort of get the ball rolling with the
Only
Giants.
just halfway through the deck, though. So it's not like, Patra's bottom 5 or anything like that.
True.
Unlikely, obviously,
Fair,
especially with Mulligan, but it does happen.
Okay. Arcane Intellect, finding some draws.
So it has to be Nova.
Sea Giant doesn't really help. Yeah, Nova's the only thing that really keeps you alive, right? You could Ziliax and hope that... Oh no, you Tyler has Zap Cannon. So
Yeah,
that
that's
just
what I mean.
helps
You have to Nova, and then the problem is, obviously Ziliak's in hand for Pathra, which is good to heal,
Yep.
but Zap Cannon, and then if the roll for Tyler on the hero power is the deal 1 to everything, then that just sets up lethal.
Developing the Luna, setting up for some draws next turn.
Yeah, you need to do
And just
something.
something on board.
Also, in terms of setting up for draw, if Tyler gets bombs, you can just...
That's
there
just
you
lethal.
go. And that's just going to be lethal. And Tyler takes a win, and he did get under some level of threat, but I do feel like Pathra could have turned up the heat way earlier in that game. And sometimes, yes, you play a Giant and it dies, but sometimes you don't. And I feel
that's how
like
you can win those games.
it may have been a few steps past passive, and that is why Tyler had time to just kind of freely play out his hand and be able to do almost whatever he wanted that game, at least I felt.
He played quite a bit on pace, and the lack of aggression from Pathra just gave him too much room to work with.
Yeah, and like I said, in the primary deck specifically, I was leaning towards Tyler. I feel like just it does a better job versus Mage than Patra's primary Mage does versus specifically this Warrior. But that's just going to be game number 1. And more games to come up, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Hearthstone Masters. Today, we're going to share one of the biggest changes coming to Hearthstone in 2019, an entirely new competitive format called Specialist. Specialist will be the default competitive format for Hearthstone Masters. From online Masters qualifiers to live Masters Tour events to the pinnacle of competition, Hearthstone Grandmasters. Ready to learn how the new Specialist format works? Let's dive right in. In this new competitive format, players select 3 30-card decks to bring to a Specialist tournament. The catch? All decks must be from the same class. In this regard, Specialist is a major departure from most other competitive formats. Amongst every player's 3 Specialist decks, one is designated as the primary deck. The player's other 2 decks are designated as secondary and tertiary decks. There are no special limitations placed on a player's primary deck aside from regular Hearthstone deck construction rules. However, a player's secondary and tertiary decks must share at least 25 cards in common with their primary deck. In other words, secondary and tertiary decks must mirror the primary deck with up to 5 cards swapped out. It is important to point out that duplicate cards count when comparing to a primary deck. For example, if you want to include 2 copies of Twilight Drake in your secondary deck, and there are no copies of Twilight Drake in your primary deck, then you must spend 2 swaps to include both cards. Unique or not, if a card isn't in your primary deck, it counts towards the 5-card difference limit. A player's primary deck is important for another reason. Whenever a new match starts, both its players must begin by piloting their primary deck. Only after the first game concludes can you choose to swap into your secondary or tertiary deck. You do not announce which of your decks you will be using in the next game, and you do not have to swap. After every game, this process repeats, allowing players to swap or stay until the match concludes. Importantly, you can swap to any of your decks between games, primary, secondary, or tertiary, including returning to your primary deck if you have previously swapped out of it. And those are all the rules for Specialists, Hearthstone's new official competitive format. So what are you waiting for? Get out there and start brewing your own primary, secondary, and tertiary decks to get a jump start on the new format and innovate like the pros.
Let the battle begin!
We're back with Pathra versus Tyler here in match number 3 of the day. Number 3 of 6, so we've got tons more Hearthstone even after this match. But it's going to be Pathra on the Mage versus Tyler on his Warrior, and I believe both players have moved on to their secondary decks. Let's check out what they submitted overall for their main, secondary, and tertiary. But Language Hacker, let's take us through the Tyler's choice here for his secondary.
Sure. In Tyler's secondary list, he's opted to take out the one copy of Augmented Elec, the Karen Bloodhoof, Grommash Hellscream, Alexstrasza, and Archivist Lysiana. So a lot of those late game threats along with one of the Elecs, but he has included 2 Big Game Hunters, 2 Super Colliders, and a second copy of Brawl. The kind of 5-card combo we've seen most Bomb Warriors switch to when they're facing mage opponents.
Yeah, they really are just, I truly believe they are pretty much just the 5 best cards to put in if you are running this style. So obviously, if you're running a 2 of Brawl, which I would like to see more in primary decks, then
You got one,
a third Brawl doesn't count, right? You already have it in. But yeah, I do like this from Tyler. It's nothing too flashy, and he is taking out some of the other cards. I like the Elysiana removal, of course. And as you've seen, although I mentioned that Grom could just win games, and also Ken did a decent job last game, Tyler really didn't need them. Yep. Whereas in case Pathra does go wide and big with the Mountain Giants, the odds of just having an answer when you basically add 5 answers to that board to your deck, right?
Yep.
The one big threat turn you're scared of against Mage, you've just removed 5 cards that don't directly answer that and added 5 cards that do when your deck already includes some anyway. So very, very powerful, and I think the most figured out counter deck that we've seen in terms of addition and removal of cards.
Which is why we kind of seen a lot of people, they haven't come together to agree, but the fact that they're including these 5 cards kind of means that they agree that these are the most powerful things you can include against the Cyclone Mage, at least in its current iteration.
Yeah, 100% feels like the most logical choice overall, whereas again, these are the questions. The Mage deck is magnificent, but also terrifying in the same way, because it's so difficult to build as we check out Pathra's list that I think almost every Mage player has submitted different primary decks and different tertiary and secondary lists.
Yeah.
So Pathra's going to be moved on to the secondary list. Just a quick nod to the tertiary one, as you can see with the Dart Frogs and the Frostborn Vexcrow. Tertiary, anti-aggro, anti-aggro, anti-aggro. But then the secondary, which is the anti-warrior deck, what do you make of this?
Well, she's added an Ooze and Harrison, some extra weapon removal. We know that a lot of warriors seem to be adding 2 Super Colliders on top of their normal range caliber, so there's going to be a plethora of weapons. So I like the double weapon removal in Pathra's secondary list. She also adds 2 Astromancers and a Messenger Raven for some extra gas. She takes out the 2 Snap Freezes that we've talked about that are kind of better in the mirror. She's removed a Frost Nova, a Frostbolt, and a Mirror Image. So she's taken out some of the not only anti-aggro cards, but kind of cards that don't really line up against Warrior very well.
Yeah, it's one of the weird cases, right, is that the cards that Pathra's added help you kill Warrior, which is what we've seen a lot of mages struggle with, to be completely honest. But the cards that have been removed have to be the stall cards, which help out against aggro or just aggressive lines of play, which Warrior can do, but that is also based on their mulligan as well. Like, the deck isn't full of 3 drops to curve into 4 drops, right? It's just a few that are available. So I do like it overall, but there is still a chance with this deck that the Mage and Pathra can just get steamrolled if Tyler can do the Warrior bomb curve with just 3, 4, mainly just those 2, to be honest. It's like, it's weird, like, oh, the sick curve of a 3-mana 3/3 and a 4-mana 4/5, but against Mage, that just adds up to like 10+ damage almost every single time it happens. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it really adds up. Tyler isn't running a lot of 1-drops. We see just the Town Crier, but he does the Omega Assembly, which we have seen him keep, just to spend the mana. So with a BGH added and Super Collider, that can be your 5 now, and that can definitely take a swing turn. Like if the Mage commits to Giant after you already have board, and then you just BGH, continue to go face, it it can be a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and as I said earlier at the start of the match, this game specifically, because it is effectively match point, we'll get the score updated for you in a second, as Tyler did win the previous game, so it is 1-0 to Tyler. But this game and this match overall is extremely important to both players because they have already lost this weekend. They lost their previous matches, so it means that just to get something out of this week, to not go 0-2, they have to win. And this is just a problem, right? Because someone has to lose, obviously, so one of these players is going 0-2 this weekend.
Yeah, it's unfortunate not being on the board just yet. Looking at the opening hands, Tyler has a lot of force. Does have the BGH, which can be very powerful, especially since we see that the Giant is in Patra's hand and she's on the coin, so it can come out a bit quicker. Not a whole lot for Patra to do here. I don't think this is one of those matchups where you want to just throw out a 2-mana card just for the sake of it.
Especially when it's an ooze and you know there's a million weapons that mess with you. Now Tyler, forced to take it slow, does not have the 3-4-5 curve or even the 3-4 curve, so it does mean that Patra has some breathing room, but these Wrench Calibers are going to start stacking up real quick. And the worry is that Patra has an answer to Wrench Caliber, but my question, Language Hacker, is it worth it?
Probably not.
Yeah, it's one bomb and 3 damage?
I think when you know that Tyler, well, you're assuming that Tyler switched to his secondary list, she doesn't know just yet. I think you'd rather hold on to the ooze just to try to get to a Super Collider, unless you're under the threat of dying to the Wrench Caliber.
Right.
I think you just have the Wrench Caliber as a write-off. And even with the Wrench Caliber up here, I'd imagine she just wants to play Mountain Giant this turn. She doesn't have Conjurer's Calling just yet. She could play out a Sandbinder, increase the hand size, get some more draw happening before she commits to the Giant, but I think when Tyler doesn't have a lot of armor built up and just a Wrench Caliber, the Giant's okay. It's not great. In this game, I can understand waiting a bit and trying to find Conjurer's Calling because of the threat of Super Collider and the added threat of BGH, for example.
Right.
Like if you throw out a Giant there and it gets BGH, it's kind of unfortunate.
It's very difficult to play this matchup from the Mage side, if I'm completely honest, because this specific one where they both got counter decks, because the problem is, like, oh, I'll go slower on Giant for when I've got other stuff to do. But my opponent also plays stuff that deals with my Conjurer's Calling, as well as playing stuff that deals with my solo Giants. When am I allowed to play cards? It's such an oppressive feeling, isn't it? Because we can see, if Patra would have played Giant, Tyler just snaps BGH, get wrecked, basically. But if Patra had Conjurer's Calling, and she goes wide, and then Tyler just snaps Super Collider that he's running 2 of as well, then you're kind of in such a bad state in both ways. It's very difficult to manage and divvy out the resources at the right cadence to be able to actually continue to threaten Warrior right now.
So don't get me wrong, I would have liked to see the Giant last turn, but I'm much more okay with her taking a separate line this game. Whereas last game, I think she should have been a bit more aggressive with the card she had.
And is that because of the counter deck?
Because of the counter deck, but also she's not under insane amounts of pressure.
It wasn't 3 into 4 into something.
Right. She was in the same position. She was at 16 health last game, right? And Tyler's board was a lot bigger. So Tyler playing the Ziliax there, not swinging with the Super Collider, but also not killing the Sandbinder. Not quite sure exactly why.
I think it was just didn't want to just put that much overkill into a 2-4, right?
Sure.
And also maybe the assumption that if the Sandbinder just stays alive, it's more awkward as Patra. If Patra goes wide, the board's even wider, which benefits Tyler sometimes. I'm living in a world where Tyler either has Brawl or wants to make Patra think he's got Brawl.
That's true. Yeah, that's fair.
Because 6 damage into this Sandbinder seems...
It does seem a bit
lot
excessive,
of damage for a 2-4 that's done nothing now. Or it does nothing now that it's spoiled.
Patra opted for Ziliax here. Just cleaning up, healing up to 30.
I thought for a second that it was Ziliax, no attacks, but I was like, makes no sense.
Some people really like Ziliax, no attacks.
Is this when you say some people will mean exactly a certain 1 to 2 people?
Yeah.
That does it.
I like this from Tyler. Just clean up the board. I would like to see the Wrench Caliber swing just to protect the Militia Commander.
Yeah, I think it feels a lot better now.
Yeah. you do have 2 bombs shuffled in, so you can just go Blastmaster Boom next turn if Pathra doesn't develop something scary. And if she does happen to pick up 1 or 2 of the bombs that have been shuffled in, Tyler does have the second wrench caliber to throw in a few more.
I definitely like chaining these wrench calibers as quickly as possible, because I think it's 2 factors, right? Your opponent knowing there's a lot of bombs in your deck is frustrating, obviously, because you're like, oh, just don't draw them, come on. But also, you putting so many bombs in your deck, it's more like they get procced. And I feel whenever you put the mage under health pressure, that's when they kind of fall apart. They don't have a good way to react, especially now that Ziliax is gone.
I don't like this from Tyler. This seems kind of weird. Your opponent's at 30, so being more aggressive isn't necessarily as powerful now because you're not really threatening some sort of lethal, but I still think just killing up the Sandbinder would have been fine.
Ooh, okay. I think you still put the 2-1 into it, but still.
Now I wouldn't. I think having a wider board at this point is fine.
I think I like the Divine... what does Tyler do about this Divine Shield?
I mean, what does it do with the 3-8 anyways, right?
Yeah, I just think it's more likely it can deal with it, that's all.
Super Collider doesn't quite, I mean, he doesn't have it in hand, but I think from Patra's perspective, Super Collider doesn't deal with this, so she's kind of happy to see that. It's not the biggest 8-drop, but it is kind of durable.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to start to think is it might not be the biggest and scariest one, but if it gets to attack twice and a different one would only attack once, then it often adds up to the same number, right?
That's assuming it even gets cleared after 2 attacks, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it might be
around for a
more,
while, yeah.
but I'm saying, you know, a more sort of higher statted but flat minion can shield slammed. Done. Forget about it. Gone. Whereas this might just be, you know, maybe fly under the radar a little bit. It's, it's only 3 attack. Next minute it's attack 3 times. Wow. It's a lot of damage gone. And also literally flies under the big game hunter's radar.
It does,
which is
yeah.
something to bear in mind. The sick plays around BGH.
Shield Slam coming down here.
I do like this swing now from Red. Just get it used. You've got Blastmaster Boom in hand. Just go. Start putting pressure on it.
But this kind of makes me wonder, like, why didn't you just kill off the Sandbinder last turn? I know you don't know last turn that this turn's going to be, next turn's going to be Armor Up, Shield Slam, Range Caliber. But
I agree. I think the swing last turn was fine, but if the swing didn't happen last turn, then I like this turn.
True.
Just get it done. Get it played
fair.
out your hand. Because you want to draw Super Colliders, right?
Yeah.
And if you mess around with these Wrench Calibers, you either don't play them, or you have to break them and not get full usage out of them. Because normally whenever you play a Super Collider, it's because you have to play it and swing that turn.
Right.
You don't normally preemptively load up a Super Collider, right?
That can be risky.
So you don't have a choice whether to break a weapon you've already got equipped or not.
I would just like to see kind of a giant ooze turn from Pathra. You're not committing too hard to the board. You don't have the Conjurer's Calling anyways.
And that's like 16 damage you can save.
Yeah, that's
technically
definitely
like that's a lot of damage. And I think while Patra's on such high health total, so I'll call it late in the game, but you know what I mean. I think you defend that, right?
Yeah.
You know, stay high, so it means if
like
a couple
those.
of bombs go off, you're still safe. You're not just dead to random things.
I like this a lot. Good positioning. Having the big minions on the outside, which is worse against Super Collider. Tyler does have a big game hunter to answer this, but that's kind of his whole turn, right?
This 3-8 is actually so sick because it dodges BGH, it doesn't die to Dynomatic. It's
that's true.
It's actually pretty solid. Maybe mages should start running this.
Sea Giant's hard to use effectively, so I'd like to see Pathra play that out now, even though that's all you're getting down this turn.
Make the same turn again.
Yeah. Could choose to just go all face to whittle down the armor, but she's already seen 1 Shield Slam, so I do kind of like killing off the big game hunter with the Divine Shield.
Ah, right, yeah, I was going to say,
yeah.
if you put the 3-2 in, then it makes it a little bit more annoying because Super Collider does get work done. I was wondering whether instead you just throw a Ray of Frost out there to freeze it and go face to push some damage.
No, no, I don't like that. I want to hold on to the Ray of Frost. Okay. A for the Antonitis would be, you can just kill off the big game hunter. This game's not going to end in the next 3 or 4 turns, so I think you do need to manage your resources a little bit. A different story if Tyler was at like say 10-15 health and you're trying to get out that last bit of damage.
Is huge. Yeah.
But here it's like, take your time. We're both kind of healthy. I have more resources in my hand right now. Sure, Tyler has some good answers, but I still have a lot of gas in my deck. Tyler did pick up the Super Collider. Pathra opts to save the Divine Shield on the Gilnean Royal Guard. trade off the ooze instead. Helps a bit against Brawl.
Soaks up an extra hit from Dynamatic.
True.
What now?
And also, you know what I think most importantly? It's a Conjurer's target, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the
Sure.
longer it lives, the more chance of drawing Conjurers, and then you start spamming out 8-drops.
I would have liked her. I mean, again, not trying to be results oriented, but I would have liked her to trade off the Divine Shield from the Gildan and Roller Guard instead of trading off the ooze.
Because of that specific reason.
Right. I know that's very, very corner case, like, oh, he needs exactly Dinomatic and the second Militia Commander, but I don't think having the ooze on the board really is a negative factor at this point. If Tyler brawls that board, you're pretty happy with it.
You haven't committed too much, right?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Especially considering, I think that, honestly, the Gilnean was one of the better outcomes I've seen from a Astromancer for a long time.
Yeah, we've been seeing some average stuff come out so far.
I feel like often they get played for just low value, like 4-drops or 5-drops. I think we've just seen lackluster ones on average, so I think it's skewed a little bit. But I think just the 3-8 did more than I've seen a lot of other Astromancers do.
Well, one of the other things is we've seen Astromancer a lot in the Primary lists against aggro, which by the time you get to turn 7, you're trying to fight for the board, you're using resources, and your hand size is small. So this time it was used pretty effectively. Tyler picks up an Omega Assembly.
Which is going to get bad news. There's a Beast, which is actually an elemental in the big game Hunter's sights. And there's Antonidas, though. Okay.
One Shield Slam gone. There is one Omega Devastator in Tyler's list. He's not running 2 even in his secondary because he only has 5 slots to swap out. So she could go in with the Antonidas with a couple of Ray of Frosts and Mirror Image. Could even throw in the Elemental Evocation Cyclone, but you kind of overdraw at that point. She could also just consider holding on. She's seen 2 BGHs, maybe play up the Sea Giant now, wait for an Apprentice or something.
So difficult, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't hate not going for the Antonidas this turn. I think you can just take the the Raven Sea Giant line instead.
Fiery is not bad. Just kill off this BGH.
Yeah, you can even play it this turn with a Sea Giant.
Yeah, I like it.
As long as you Sea Giant before you ping.
So honestly, I feel like Messenger Raven, I'm kind of glad it's coming back into a little bit of popularity, even if it's just in tech, you know, secondary or tertiary decks.
Yeah, I like it.
Mainly because yes, it's a Raven, but also I think it's just quite solid. It's unlikely with the mage minions that you don't get at least one decent choice.
Yeah, there's very few options that you're offered where you're like, oh my god, this was a mistake.
Yeah. What a waste.
Yeah, Khadgar's good, Astromancer, Antonidas, Calicos,
all the mage
Mana
legendaries
Cyclone.
are good right now. They're in that spot where all the legendaries are good too.
Even just trying to fill out your curve with something like Water Elemental, follow up is fine too. There's a lot of good stuff.
Dart Frogs.
Ribbit. Tyler taking a VT so that he can Super Collider. Remaining minions on board are mechs, so that Dynamatic, it's not very lucky. It is going to just hit the Sea Giant every time.
It's a bit of a fear factor as well, is that this Scrap Hound is going to mess with Patra's plans a little bit, because I feel like she was setting up for Antonidas to try and sort of snipe the game.
True. You can still, so another thing you can do, sure, Antonidas gives you fireballs, which in history has been used to go face a lot as a sort of freeze mage style. But if with enough fireballs, you can just use them to clear board, right? Like, Patra's hand is still full, and you can get a lot of stuff going on, even if you don't just try to kill out Tyler immediately.
The big question is what's in this Cyclone? You see Tyler there keeping count of the amount of spells that Patra's played to work out how many are going to be summoned.
Well,
but I think
at
most
least
importantly,
fireballs,
how many fireballs
exactly.
are in hand.
Because on Deck Tracker, I know it shows like a little gift box for anything that's been created by, but it doesn't have different gift boxes for fireballs versus Cyclone. Yeah. So if a Cyclone were to come down here, Tyler does need to keep track of how many fireballs there are versus how many random spells there are.
Funnily enough, it's kind of awkward, isn't it, with Antonidas into Cyclone? Because you've doubled up on the spells you get instead of just, you know, well, sorry, I guess you've tripled up on spells in total, but...
I think you do. So what you're saying is I'm going to lose... Patra's saying she's going to lose 1 card from her deck if she uses the Cyclone here, but using the Cyclone gives you 3 random cards, 3 random mage spells, so she has to determine whether or not it's worth it.
I think you play it. Yeah. I think you always play it, but I just think it's funny the way the thing it doesn't do as well, because you're already gaining spells every time you cast, and then you gain more back. So often you have hand issues, right? Yeah. And she didn't go for it. So why is that?
Well, if we look at the cards she still has left in her deck, she still has an Astromancer. I believe she still has a Sea Giant. But other than that, there's not, I mean, she does have 2 Conjurer's Callings.
That's the big
She
one,
might
right?
be scared of losing those.
I'm wondering what's left to Conjurers.
That-
Astromance number 2?
Yeah, pretty much. Harrison, I suppose, but that's a 5 cost minion, so it's not that impactful. Oh, okay, that was
Winner
close. Yeah.
is-
I would have liked to see Pathra just play the cycle last turn.
So the issue with the non-Cyclone, it was only 3 cards, but it makes a hand very one-dimensional. She has
Sure.
fireballs. That's the turn. 9 times out of 10, right? She can obviously fireball, mana cyclone to just draw, or generate 2 cards, which isn't the end of the world at all.
I like this image, this mirror image here. So Pathra has 24 damage with fireballs. Over 2 turns, add 2 pings, that's 26. But Tyler's at 27, so he's a little bit out of range, and he can still armor up. What Pathra can do here is go something like Khadgar Mirror Image. And with the spell she's played this turn, she can also play out Mana Cyclone. Have a couple minions left. It's going to be hard for Tyler to get through the Mirror Images. Sure, he has Warpath, but that's a card he's going to have. And then you can get some more random stuff for Cyclone. And perhaps if that's Burst, that can be the damage you're missing. I'm surprised to see the Snap Freeze. She could just take a different line where she Ray of Frost Snap Freezes the Clockwork Goblin here. And that does take some power off the board.
Tries to buy more time.
Right. It still allows you to go Mana Cyclone.
And she has 2 mana cyclones, so you
Sure.
can still do that over a couple of turns anyway. Oops, ping pass.
I think she's taking this a little too slow again.
Tyler looks confused.
Yeah, I don't think you can just float 7 mana in this matchup. You are healthy and you have a lot of time to work with, but the problem is Tyler's just not passing every turn, right? Tyler's going to continue developing stuff.
One, Snap Freeze, good answer to that guy.
True.
But yes, this is still damage, and the problem is, the second the boombots hit the board, it is so often that even if you don't proc them, the warrior player can.
Yeah.
Is that these boombots are just damage. There's no, you can't vanish them back, right? You can't get away from it. They are just damage all the time. So Harrison's not a bad pickup to remove the weapon. So Harrison into the Ray of Frost into Snap Freeze does something,
Right.
but that Harrison's already dead. So
Yeah.
again, it's like, do you need
Dead on
Harrison
arrival.
this turn if there's nothing to Super Collider anyway? It's tough.
Yeah.
I don't have the answer to that question.
I wonder.
The thing is, imagine Pathra did something else last turn, where she actually developed something. I know it wouldn't have been that much, but even just Khadgar images would have been something on the board that's difficult for Tyler to like punch through with. And even if Tyler had done the exact same thing, she'd at least have a bit of extra chip damage. And I don't know. It just feels like this way she's
What to do?
kind of digging herself a hole because she's not taking any proactive lines.
Saving the Snap Freeze as well. I mean, Fireball Ping, obviously a very clean way to kill off
Yep.
Blastmaster Boom, so it's not like it made it any more awkward, but it's Fireball Ping versus a Ray of Frost Snap Freeze. More expensive in mana cost to do it this way, but holds onto slightly more flexible tools to do things like this and to stall out the game a little bit more.
Playing a Mana Cyclone here for 2 cards. And rounding out the turn of the Ray of Frost if she doesn't overdraw any of the cards left in her deck. The problem is, she has an Astromancer, but other than that, the Conjurer's Callings don't really hit anything else.
Speak to me. Light the fuses.
There is a Sea Giant left, but it might be coming down too late. I mean, first of all, it's not even in her hand at this point, but Tyler here drawing some cards with the Acolyte while cleaning up the Cyclone.
This is another game where Conjurers has been in the bottom half.
Yeah.
It's not played any, right? I'm not going crazy. We didn't miss a Conjurer's
No,
turn.
yeah, it's also in her deck. We didn't miss that either.
Yeah, oh yeah, so I could Conjurer's Call in my tertiary deck.
Yeah,
What?
But the casters didn't talk about it.
Why didn't they mention the most important card? And this is... It's tough now, right? Because right now, over the past couple of turns, Pathra has lost a lot of health now. She was
Yep.
relatively safe at mid-20s for a lot of the game. But now I just don't know. And these fireballs, you mentioned earlier, fireballs are also pretty good removal tools for mana
Yeah,
killer
true.
thing most of the time. But the more I see the fireballs used not at face, the more I'm trying to work out where this damage comes from to actually win the game.
Yeah, that's the thing.
These bombs are worth 4 a turn at minimum. Then if they get blown up by a Warpath that we can see in hand, Tyler technically has outs for lethal next turn.
Yeah.
Especially because there's 2 guaranteed from the Goblin bomb
Yeah,
as well.
that as well. It's good. I mean, if nothing's developed this turn,
Oh, it's like, yeah, if nothing was developed this turn, it was
4, 5,
like 99.
6.
I'm going to use my quick maths and say 99% lethal because one bomb has to hit for more than two. More than
It
one.
was like 95.
What, for one bomb to hit more than one?
No, for it to be lethal.
If she played nothing?
If she played nothing.
Okay.
It's 4 damage, plus the 2 from the Goblin Bomb, which is 6. The swing from the Super Collider is 7. And then at minimum 4 damage from the bombs, which would be 11.
Yeah.
So 2 of them have to hit for more than 1.
Sorry, 2 of them, on 13.
So it's Pathra playing out the Banana Buffoon, picking off the bomb to try and soak up some damage so it doesn't hit Jaina. Or I guess her hero.
Yeah. Is it? Yeah, interesting. I was wondering, like, you just do this anyway,
Yep.
right?
You
There's
do.
no massive punish for going, you know, you might get it, you might not, but there's no huge punish. You have follow-up, so...
Playing at the Acolyte
See?
too, just in case the
4,
lethals. Oh, that's gonna be it. The second Warpath.
Oh yeah, the Goblin Bomb, that's just going to be game, yeah. The bombs just pushed it over the edge there, and Tyler takes the win with the Warrior 2-0 over Patra's Mage there, and honestly, the more I see the matchup, we might not have agreed with the way Patra approached some of the turns, but the more I see the matchup across the board, the more I get more and more scared for Mage because it seems so difficult. But I will say that these primary lists, at least on average, I feel are built to deal with the other counter Mage picks, which are aggro decks, which why we see more Vex Crows, for example, get
Ramble
used, maybe
Bouncers and
more
stuff, yeah.
Frost Novas, etc. So there is a problem that when you're building for 2 players, you have to consider things, and just as much as you don't want Bomb Warrior to just beat you, you don't want any aggro deck to just beat you either, which was often the case in the early versions when it was like all late game and then some spells.
Right.
Whereas we've seen the deck develop to more anti-aggro tools because you had nothing initially when the deck was starting to just come out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad she switched her second list, which had a bit more gas, but I mean, even with the Mage gas, the tools that Warrior has added to the arsenal when they switch to the big game hunters and super colliders, they're just so effective at cleaning up the threats from the Mage.
And I also think as well, it's the knowledge of how to mulligan and play versus the deck, because I think, especially, it was when it was more Control Warrior here, Bomb Warrior here, and
Right.
you know, there were different lists. But now this Bomb Warrior deck's been like more or less thought out pretty well. I think just the knowledge of, I mulligan for early minions and play them. I am not trying to do crazy bomb things of shuffling loads of bombs in later for big combos. You just play minions on curve, hit Mage in the face, and then try and, you know, basically do whatever to finish the
Right.
game. And I think as soon as that got, you know, sort of agreed upon as the play style, we saw Bomb Warrior jump in the winnings and in terms of win percentage, because that style isn't a fluke. It keeps happening. It's literally how almost every Bomb Warrior has beat Mage in the Grandmasters so far.
We've been seeing Bomb Warrior, namely, picking up a lot of wins against Mage lately, and I think if that continues, maybe Mage might not be the bring. Maybe people start bringing more Warriors.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's just how the evolution of the Grandmasters meta will continue to develop, because I don't think we're ever going to just set on the same 2 weeks, because again, if some Mage counters such as Midrange Hunter appearing, and then the Bomb Warriors are doing well versus Mage and have good matchups versus other things as well,
Right.
then suddenly people have to consider, right, but Hunter beats Bomb Warrior, at least in my opinion so far, the
Sure.
mid-range list. So now I'm like, right, what does well versus these things now? Because you have to like rework it out and go all the way back. And knowing us, we're going to be back on Rogue next week.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if the Mage lists start to develop a bit more greedy. Like we see a couple of tech cards that people bring against aggro, and sure that we need to prepare for aggro, but what if you build it in a slightly different way where you can have some of the same greed that you had in the old Dragons list? Obviously not with as many minions, and I think you still want some of the cheap spell package with the Cyclone, but maybe there's some way you can build it a bit greedier that can help out a bit more against Warrior.
Yeah, or even potential just steadier earlier removal. Even like Doomsayers to play into turn, you know, they play Clockwork.
Frostbolts.
They play, yeah, I mean, there are lists. I was playing lists with Water Elementals and double Frostbolt the other day, but they're even like Doomsayer after their Clockwork Goblin to stop the turn 4, and then suddenly you've only really taken 3 damage from that if the Doomsayer goes off, which I think in that scenario with current deck lists it either does or you get the Militia Commander specifically to deal with it, but still, you suddenly saved about 8 damage. We are setting up, or at least planned, to do an interview with Tyler, but I believe we're just still sorting it out. So we're just going to jump to a quick break, and when we come back, hopefully we'll have the interview for you. So don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.